Om Mano Nabudhi Shariram Indriyam Tanmatram Bhutani Nabhuta Panchakam Aham Kritas Chapi Tam Swarupanam Tamisham Atmanam Upuiti Shashvatam Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. That one attains to full identity with Brahman, who dissolves the senses, the subtle senses, the elements, the subtle elements, the mind, the intellect, along with the ego, into Brahman. Brahman is the soul in all. Om, peace, peace, peace. May that Brahman protect us. May it sustain us. May it illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings on Brahman. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. As we were doing last night at our Durga Puja on the 6th day, Svagatam, welcome. Welcome amongst us. We were asking the Mother in the form of Sri Durga, the ultimate goddess, to be amongst us. Om Yasya Darshana Vichanti Devaha Svabhista Siddhaye Tashyai Te Parameshini Svagatam Svagatam Jame. May she be welcome here amongst us, and may we have darshan with her. Hopefully we'll do that every day of the 365 days of the year, but in these particular 9 days, in which we're on the 7th right now, called Saptami, at least here in the United States, because in India you'll look forward a day, then we have to think of it as a very rare and special opportunity to invoke her. And yes, you'll do puja and invoke her external image. That's Tripura Sundari. That's 3 cities she's in. If you think about it Upanishadically, the first city is that image of her that you're worshipping. So it's very important, even in Vedanta, this upasana, this worship of images. As Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa used to say, that's not just an image of 5 elements that you've gathered together there, called mrinmoy, all made of mayik things, but it's chinmoy, it's things that are gathered together of consciousness. They just happen to be formed into any given image. And there are also articles around her that are of metal and wood, fragrances, holy water, Ganges water, and flowers that we offered last night in our 10-article worship to Sri Durga. And there are 16 article worships and 18 and 24 article worships. We probably would have all fainted by that time and not been able to finish the puja, because it had already gone 2 hours for us. And we were all in a sort of blended state of subtle ecstasy and exhaustion, because the whole day had been spent gathering these elements and cooking sanctified food and making garlands by hand from flowers grown here in the Hawaiian Islands, beautiful tropical flowers. And then we sat for the worship. So a little bit of a preview of what we've been through in the last 24 hours on the 6th day of Navaratri. 7th day here, Saptami, beings are still worshipping her around the world. We have to think about that, because here in the West there's not a lot of evidence of it. Of course, there's not a lot of evidence of spirituality in the West per se at all. Maybe churches and steeples. But as Lord Buddha said, the rust has begun to corrode everything. The rust of monasteries is the lack of recitation of scriptures. The rust of households is the lack of spiritual self-effort. So that's the Lord Buddha saying that. So if he's noticed in his time, which is 550 years prior to Jesus' arrival here on earth, that was one of the avatars that India looks back to, because great souls like Jesus are there are many of those coming in India, the way they look at it. So if Lord Buddha is looking out on households at that time, 550 years BC, and seeing that people have lost that light, that tejas, that sheen, that, as Sri Ramakrishna said in Bengal just a couple hundred years ago or less, worldly people look very pale and wan. And these people aren't Caucasian either he's looking at. These are brown faces he's looking at, and they should have this radiance coming out of them, particularly if you are in a country that worships Brahman and Divine Mother equally, and all the deities too that are there. So that shine comes out of people who keep their minds fixed on Brahman and on Ishvara. And that's God with form and God without form. I don't turn those around. God with form, of course, is Ishvara. And Brahman is the formless reality. So both of those are of equal import in India. And in our tradition, which is particularly Ramakrishna order, as you come into SRV Loka, you'll find that we have a practice that matches the meditation on both of those. We're supposed to practice both of those ideals and hold them dear, because Sri Ramakrishna has said, of course, he was a man of realization of many ideals, but he said about these two, form and formlessness, that they can be held at the same time. It's a little more difficult than holding one. And even in India, he used to speak to people, do you believe in God with form, or do you believe in God as being formless? So when he'd meet people for the first time in that lifetime of theirs and of his, then he would ask them that pointed question, and they would answer accordingly. Not many people were holding, even in India, were holding both ideals. So this is another great benefit we have to Avatar of Adhishtaya. We call that the most recent visitation of the best of all avatars has come there in the form of Sri Krishna. And I'm speaking in this way in this class, not just to tout my own lineage and my own perspective, because we know Sri Ramakrishna was essentially a non-dualist, but he had this deep love of Mother Kali, and it is Durga Puja, so then I guess I'm allowed to speak a little bit about those things that were nearest and dearest to him, that you might say in terms of Mother Kali, she was formless form. Our founder, Lex Hickson, I think, coined that phrase, as far as I know. So it's somewhere between form and formlessness, she's there as a presence. Black is her color, and she has beautiful songs about her radiant blackness. So she'll blend in both to nature, and she'll blend in also to unmanifested nature, and we'll see that she's the matriarch of both. Sri Durga Gayatri Om Katyayanaya Vidmahe Kanyakumari Dhimohi Tano Durga Prachodayat. So we saluted her with her mantra, the Gayatri, Durga Gayatri, here, live streaming, saying to everyone who is watching right now and everyone who will watch around the world that we are invoking the presence of the Divine Mother. And may she reveal the subject of this class to us, because she's the Mother of Wisdom. And 2 weekends ago, 2 Sundays ago, we had the Naham part of this Triputi class. And today we want to look at Kaham. And next Sunday we'll look at Saham. So basically it means Naham, I'm none of that, you see. Or you could say, maybe if you want to put it in characteristic form, what am I? And then that goes to Kaham. If I'm none of that, Naham, if I'm not the little self, you could even interpret that with all its various things, then who am I? You probably at that point wouldn't be saying what am I, because you've gotten rid of all the whats, the whys, the whens, the wherefores, and you would have arrived at I must be something other than changing particles. My consciousness is stable and steady enough to ask this question, who am I? Atma Vichara, the inquiry into the nature of the unchanging self, which we all feel probably from the cradle to the grave. We all feel it, maybe in different degrees. But the involving spiritual aspirant, you'll know that I've just changed that from the evolving human being to the involving spiritual aspirant, will become aware more and more by degrees that I am Atma Brahma, as we chanted last night. See, we had 4 Mahavakyas. This is the Chakra Mudra, and we faced her, and we recited the 4 Mahavakyas as an acknowledgement of her presence as pure conscious awareness, as timeless, deathless consciousness. So she's the best representative of that in form. Formless form, we could call her then. So here on 7th day of Navaratri, we do welcome you into the serious subject of I am not anything changing. Well, who am I then? I am, well, I'm not going to give away next week's class, but you probably already know who you are. I hope you know who you are. But my point, by bringing all 3 of these up, because my teacher, Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj, peace and blessings be upon him, said these very things from the podium of the Vedanta Society when I was attending it, when I was in my 20s and 30s. And he said that this great, if it can be called a practice in Advaita Vedanta, because there's hardly any practices, anything that resembles an actual practice. In Vedanta, you go to yoga or tantra for things like that. But if we could call it a practice right now, if that phrase can be allowed, then he would say that that was practiced and advised by as long ago as Lord Vashishta. We know him as being one of the mind-bore sons of Lord Brahma and one of the 7 great rishis and so forth. So we had him way back in time, whenever Ram lived, which is before Krishna lived. And so that's how long ago in ages or millennia we'll have to look to find this great soul. And then he mentioned that it was also practiced and brought forward by Ramana Maharshi, who then said Naham, Kaham, Saham. So we did Naham 2 weeks ago, and we found out that, as I just chanted, Mano Nabudi Shariram Indriyam Tanmatram Bhutani Nabhuta Panchakam, Bhuta elements, Bhutani, Bhuta Panchakam, all 5 of them, and all the 5 elements of air, earth, fire, water, and ether, and then the senses. Not only the gross senses of seeing, tasting, touching, hearing, and smelling, but the subtle senses, tanmatras, and subtle elements that go along with those. Where these outer senses came from are back inside of your mind. You can see tonight in a dream. You can hear tonight in a dream. You have subtle senses. So these are activated at night, and they're sort of hidden in the daytime when you're waking. It's the opposite. When you're waking and in dreaming, you operate these gross senses, and everyone lives through them and sees objects and thinks that's real and takes it all so damn seriously, you see. So we have to have a little bit of witness consciousness mixed in with that. If you know that Saham, that I am Atma Brahma, that this self is Brahman, like we said with those Mahavakyas, Aham Brahmasmi, I mean, it can be no mistaking that. In the seminar we gave last Sunday, which is why this class is delivered a week late, as it were, I coined that phrase, no mistaking moksha. As you look at liberation in terms of India, there's no mistaking it for anything that changes, evolves, transforms, moves, and so forth. All those things have to be absent before the soul can say, I'm free. I was always free, but because those all things were present and dancing in front of me, and I hadn't said Naham to them, then all of a sudden, here I am hypnotized by them. Like Sri Ramakrishna said, going to the garden of nature and forgetting the gardener. Wow, who projected all this? Does that question ever arrive in anyone's head when they first see nature? It says, let me into it. I want to swim in water. I want to eat that earth. I want to feel that sunshine on my back. I want to breathe that air. I hope you do, and you breathe it well and with health. I hope it's all done in consciousness and with good health for everyone, because gurus can be very critical about the choices people make, see, the lifestyles people are living, and the poor choices that they're making that bring suffering to them and others. But they still have this great sensitivity for your well-being, for your highest well-being. And therefore they will keep these teachings of the Dharma prevalent and present age to age. That's one of the 4 functions of Lord Shiva, by the way, is to keep the teachings present age to age, and the ashramas that keep the teachings and give the teachings out through acharyas and teachers. So it's very much a part of the tradition. All the darshanas in India hold that sacred. They're not going to let that go. So they're not going to abandon you. They're not going to abandon your soul. So all of this is very helpful then when you come to ask that question, Kaham, who am I then? Maybe you look at them and you say, am I them? Am I like them? Can I also be transcendent, peaceful, equanimous, non-emotional, unconcerned, blissful, peaceful, beneficent? All those qualities that we've worshipped last night in Durga's image when we did the 10-article worship, giving her all these things. Yes, ritual, but very profound ritual with deep meaning and ancient that echoes way back. Not only echoes way back in time, it echoes into the eternal moment where she is. So there she is inside of you, waiting for you to awaken. And how long will she wait? Yugas? A Mahayuga? We looked at that at the seminar last week. How about a Manvantara? How about 4 billion years, which is one day of Lord Brahma's life? Will she wait that long? Well, if one day of Brahma's life can go by and she's not affected by it, then time to her must be infinite and boundless, like consciousness. So my usual preamble to this, because we had a week off with that seminar, this is SRV radio station 108. We are all the Dharma all the time, 24 hours. So our week off last week was a seminar. Now here we are back with a puja this Saturday and a class this Sunday. We keep at it. And that's so that people will know these teachings. Somewhere in the world there are people who want this very much. Yes, some people will come, they wanted it, they thought they wanted it, they'll abandon it, run away, and maybe take another bite in another lifetime, who knows. Some people will come and say, this is what I've always been waiting for, and I might have been waiting lifetimes for this. I've certainly been waiting a half a lifetime, or a third of a lifetime, and I better get going now, so that I can realize it in this lifetime. Because we're just saying here, Naham, I am not this, is the neti part of that practice. But when you just say, who am I, you think the answer comes back, you are the Atman, you are the eternal soul, you are birthless, deathless, timeless, and so forth. Is that it? Then I can walk away and take that on wise counsel as being the truth? Well, the proof of the pudding there is what happens after you walk away. Did you stay in enlightenment? Did the gunas get put on hold? Or did you fall into slothfulness, restlessness, and love of pleasure again? Tamas, rajas, and sattva. That's going to take a few days to find out. See? And then when you find out that they're probably still coming at you in cycles, then you have to do a practice, you see, because this is what we'll get to when we're talking about Saham today. Who am I? It's not enough to ask that. And then, yes, you should hear it and take it on good faith from those who have realized it, but they have realized it. They are Saham. You are still back here at Kaham. So who am I has to be asked again and again, deeper and deeper levels of, until the question gets finally answered. I am Atma Brahma, or Pragyanam Brahma, or Aham Brahmasmi, if you want to go straight, cut straight to the chase. You can't, that's why I'm saying, there's no mistaking moksha, there's also no mistaking that Mahavakya, Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. So that's going to go straight to the heart of the matter, and you'll find out pretty soon, Aham Kritas Chapi. As I chanted, you have to also dissolve the ego, not just the senses, elements, mind, intellect. Aham Kritas Chapi, Viyat Swarupakam. You dissolve Aham, the small ego, into Swarupa, into the essence. Tanatman Atmanam, you see. So I am the Atman. So when you do that, then there's no mistaking that Aham Brahmasmi has come true or been true all the while, and you hadn't been aware of it. From cradle to the grave, my teacher used to say, people aren't aware of that fact. They may court it, they may come close to it, but you have to come close to the fire and burn everything like ashes. See? There's another quote. The quote I'm explaining right now is from the Avadhuta Gita, but there are quotes by Shankara that says these very things, mind, intellect, senses and everything, you have to burn them in the fire of wisdom, the same as you would burn leaves, fruit, camphor, and wood in your homa fire. It all has to come to ashes, because everything turns to ashes in the end. Anyway, that's not that hard to understand. Your body will be on a cremation pyre before too long. Or insects will eat it. Or the animals will have it for lunch. Whatever the case may be. The little tiny things inside of you will eat you away. There's that interesting story about that as we look at Lord Buddha's emaciated form here when he sat for 49 days to get his nirvana, or to realize again how deep nirvana goes, that there was this sannyasin wandering. He wandered into a village, and there was a man selling meat. So he just stood across the street. So the meat seller looked across there and he said, Sadhu sannyasin, and oh, well, okay. So the sannyasin just stood there for hours, So finally the man said, well, I should offer him something. So, come over here, sannyasin, sadhu. I'll give you a strip of meat here, you see. So strips of meat are hanging there in the sun, and the flies are buzzing. You know the drill. So this grisly fare. So the sannyasin just shook his head. But said, oh, okay, well, I gave him something free, offering my heart. He didn't want it. I'll just ignore him. So he stood there longer. So finally he said to the man again, no, please come over here. They'll give you this for free. You realize this is for free. You really look like very emaciated. There's no meat on your bones. Come here and let's put some meat on your bones with this meat. And the sadhu then spoke for the first time and said, well, that's okay, I'm fine. I have enough meat on my bones to feed my worms. This is what I mean about things that eat the body. So it cannot be the self. In fact, it's very despicable to think about it as the self. See, you're talking about senses and enjoyment and all that, and making a baby and all that. The scriptures call that the filth of the parents. The filth of the parents. What you want is to see this soul liberated from that kind of thing. So if it has to come through through a fetus and through a baby and so forth, and grow up from cradle to the grave, then you want to give it everything it needs to get free. Everything it needs to get free from that condition it's in. A few illumined souls that come into the body, they know this, so they will come with pure minds. So what was the purpose of mano no buddhi, shariram, the five sheaths, dissolving them, dissolving the mind and the intellect, so that the mind would be pure. You're not like taking the brain out of your head and offering it in puja or something, in a home of fire. You're getting it close to knowledge so that all its seeds will be burnt, like rice, like paddy, Shamrakrishna said. If you strew paddy around the ground, rains come, riot of growth. Warm the paddy over the fire for a while in a pan, then strew it, rains come, no growth at all. So you don't want to grow more bodies. Most people can't even get to the place where they think that there are an opportunity for more bodies. There's just one body. So those people are limited to that view. But there are people then who entertain the idea that I can have more births. And when they first hear that, they say, great, I've seen it happen, I've heard it. You mean I have more bodies? Great, I'm so happy about that. But then it seems like once they are satiated with the world, and they become world-weary, and disease comes, and old age, and growth, and disease, and death, and they realize that this is coming upon them maybe again and again, and they have to pay for the body to the last farthing, to quote Holy Mother, then at that time they might start thinking, I'm gone and gone forever, as he said. Have no hope for me, for the body, for the world forevermore. I'm gone and gone forever. So he's thinking of no more birth in the womb of matter for me. No more birth in the womb of matter for me. But a Jivan Mukta would say, no more birth in the womb of matter for me, only emanation from my Divine Mother. So if you have yourself a source that's birthless, deathless, and you're a ray coming from the sun, a ray just gets brought back to the sun again. So we come from Mother, we sport here, we return to Mother, or to Atman, or Brahman, however you want to put that. Mother's always the best intermediary for that, at least the intermediary. So basically, when you come to Kaham, now that we remember back 2 Sundays ago, if our memory is good enough, what was it, Naham, that we said Naham to? So basically, senses, body, so forth. But I first brought this forward to look at it so you can see that how Shankara took the 24 cosmic principles of Kapila so long ago in the Samkhya period, and pretty soon had molded them into, in a very recent time, only 1300 years ago or so, which is recent for Indian philosophy, molded them into the 3 bodies. So I just chanted Sharira, sheaths, you must dissolve all the sheaths also back into Brahman. So we had this very beautiful example of the 3 bodies, and we've seen it before enough times that it's called what we call kind of a war horse now chart that we can always look back on and benefit from. But nevertheless, we bring it up here in context of Kaham. Your 3 bodies are Stula Sharira, basically the 5 organs of action, Deha, the body, and the 5 elements. That's here. First body. There are 3 goddesses here, as it were. So basically, the first body is your gross body, Naham, right? So I'm just kind of giving a little review of 2 Sundays ago, only in a more concentrated way. Naham. You could say Naham. I'm none of that. How many of those bodies have come? How many times have you owned senses? How many times have you cavorted about in the 5 elements? And still you don't have enough? You're not satiated yet? Well, why is that? Because my teacher used to say, satiation never comes. That's why. You have to transcend You can't get to the infinite through the finite. It's not possible. You have to transcend the infinite. So here's this method, dissolving everything back right now where you sit. How long did Jesus sit in the wilderness? How long did Buddha sit under the bo tree? How long was Muhammad in the wilderness? Well, definitely long enough to realize that they're not realized Naham. Not only for themselves, because they probably already knew it, but for all the people that were following them, that were looking on. In Buddha's case, just a few renunciates living with bark as clothes and boiling leaves for their dinner, for soup. They were all looking like this, you see, and they thought that was the way, but Buddha saw a better, higher way than asceticism. And then that's where the Four Truths and Eightfold Path and Paticca Samutpata and all these great Buddhist things came out of the tradition. It was just waiting there to come out, you see. And it just needed a great messenger to come and just touch it. Just touch it. The divine touch to the great mind. And then everything comes spilling forth, like, touching a bee's hive at night. And all of a sudden you hear the humming in there. It's Om. And there's going to be lots of particles of Om coming out of that nest. You better stand back. And try and comprehend. So, Naham. Then there's the Sukshma Sharira. And basically, there's the next one. So I'm just going through, you can look at this up in Footfalls and the book we put out to see this chart for yourself. But basically it says you're not the desire and action. That's from your mind. Sukshma Sharira is the subtle body you have. Your gross body, we know what that is. Pretty easy for people to say, yeah, I understand your point there. I'm probably not that. I wouldn't want to be that. It's sort of assigning myself to a spiritual suicide and identifying with matter. And, matter doesn't have that great a life. There's no sentiency in it, for one thing. Can't do what it wants. But you can see the mind has a much more active life, more shiny, more sheen to it. That sheen that we're talking about, that light. So desire and action are in it. Ignorance, or i.e. nescience, is in it. Not knowingness is in the mind. That's ignorance, or avidya we call it. The 5 modes of life force are in there, called 5 pranas, which Vivekananda called the 1 prana in 5 forms. And the 5 senses of knowledge are there. So you've got 10 senses. That's why dissolve, mano na buddhi, shariram, those are the sheaths, and then tanmatram, 5 senses, and then indriyam, the 5 senses, bhutani, the gross senses, and bhutani, all the 5 outer senses too. So he starts from the inner going out, we're going from the outer in. So if you work your way up here, the 5 modes of life force was not given by Lord Kapila in the 24 Cosmic Principles. And I'm not going to go into why, but it has been a missing element. Vivekananda came here to the West and he said, you don't know about prana and you don't know about tanmatras. You can conceive of other things because they're in your knowledge base, like intelligence, consciousness, but you can't conceive of these things. You don't know what they are because you've never heard of them. So if you have many lifetimes where you've never heard of a thing, and you try and present a teaching about it to people, they're clueless. What do you mean? And so that's what we are. That's what our biologists are. They don't know that there are subtle elements from which gross elements come from. And it doesn't take 4,320,000,000 years to produce them, so that you can finally know them later. That's called knowing after in Vedanta. You have to know now. And some souls know before. So talk about Tribhutis. So basically, Gyanendriyas are the 5 subtle senses, and then there's this 4-fold mind called the inner organ. That's the seat of everything manifesting. And it also holds everything unmanifested as seeds in it. The seeds for all of these things, nature, fire, there's a seed for water, there's a seed for earth. It doesn't just happen over evolution and time. It's always present in the mind, in its seed form. Then someone, like I said, just touches it with a higher power, with some Shakti, and burgeon, there it goes, you see. And it's just like fireworks going off in the sky, Sri Krishna said. Some of them are cheap, some of them are expensive. Subtle body. Then there's a causal body. Well, hush my mouth. There's nothing to say about it. You can't find anything in the scriptures about it. So how are we going to know that? Call it deep sleep and try and think about what happened to us when our ego went away last night and we weren't who we thought we were during the day and during dream. I mean, do you even know who you are during your dream? I mean, we're talking about Kaham here. Who are you, right? I hope you're getting this connection. Do you even know who you are in your dream? Sometimes you don't look like yourself. Sometimes you don't act like yourself. You have some kind of knowledge you possess that you're calling mind. The ego is holding on to that desperately. But it's all changing. It's more changing than it is out here. One Swami told me once that if I was given $1 million, in a dream, and I kept it in a dream bank, most likely I would go back tomorrow night and it wouldn't be there. See? So I'd rather have $1 million out here in the waking state, put it in that bank, because I can pretty much depend upon that, at least for a few years, until dishonesty and deceit comes in a materialistic society, and then, hey, where'd my money go? But anyway, a dream bank is not going to be there tomorrow night. So this is the you think you are in the subtle body. They have designations for this in the Upanishad, Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, and the three kinds of beings you are when you are in those states. It's a very nice study. Vedanta has its version of that. So Shankara is inserting this in deeper into us. All the thing you can say about your causal body is where the intellect ceased vibrating, because your ego went with it. It's a mind existing in its subtlemost state. So it must be a mind still there because you came out of it. So that's what we're calling a storage tank, you see. It's not self-storage. That's the Atman. Go along the freeway, you see self-storage as you go by. You see, oh, that must be everyone keeping their Atmans in there. Because I certainly don't see them out here. Nobody's being the self. They're keeping their Atmans in self-storages along the freeway. So I don't see the self. Or there are three gunas resting in equilibrium in there. So that's why, if you knew your deep sleep state and the gunas came out at you and kept threatening you or bothering you after you already said Saham or after you already said Kaham and walked away, then you'll know there must be something not quite right in my swapna, in my sushupti state. See, my sushupti state, I've not mastered it. I've not transcended the gunas, so there the gunas are. In the deep sleep state, I'm going to have to get to them. Remember the rule, you cannot get to the infinite through the finite. These are all finite things. They're the non-self, called the anatman, and we're looking at them in terms of, who am I? Am I those things? They are very subtle. Most people will think they are the intellect. People aren't body-oriented at all. It's not like everyone's walking out there, thinking they're the body, and like fools. A lot of people like that. But some of them have already transcended that. That's lower thinking. I'm really the mind. I'm the intellect. I'm my knowledge, and so forth. That even becomes a subtle problem for a jnani person who's trying to go beyond higher knowledge to more on that at another time. Well, the only thing you can say is this apyaktam. So he says down here in this, the body, organs, pranas, mind, ego, modifications, objects of the senses, pleasure and pains they usher in, 5 elements, the universe, and unmanifested nature, all these constitute the non-self. I mean, thank you, Lord Kapila, for doing your homework on the 24 cosmic principles thousands of years before Ram and Krishna, but thank you, Shankara, in a more current age, for giving us a list of what we aren't. It's all Maya, from avyaktam, right there, the undifferentiated, all the way down to the element earth and the gross body. It's all Maya. You don't think Maya is an important word and has a lot of deep connotation for us. Or, if we can't describe it all, we could put it like in the way he sings it. Nacha prana sango navai pancha vayu navasata dhatu nava pancha koshaha navakpani padam nacho pastapayu chidananda rupaha shivoham shivoham chidananda rupaha shivoham shivoham. Put Om there above Avyaktam. He will do that sometimes. Then Name Dvesha Raga Nabe Loba Moha Madonaiva Me Naiva Matsarya Bhavaha, as we transition over here to what we're not in the Buddhist way. So here's how Shankara in a more modern time would tell you about Naham Saham. Naham Kaham. None of that I am. Then what am I? Or what I'm saying here is, what am I not? If I'm not that, then who am I? So you wouldn't go and say, what am I? And then say, or say, I'm not, what am I not? But you then flash forward and say, what am I then? You'd have to shift to who am I then? And you would, because at that time you know that you're none of this. So where is the who in all that? Where was the strand? Like last night in the puja, we had the Sutradhara sitting there, you see, an image of the Divine Mother, and she was reciting the things that the pujari must do, right? Okay, now achamana, purify your senses with water. Okay, now samanargya, stop on it. Now put the water there, flower, grass, leaf, rice, in all the mudras. Put it there after you've done the diagram. Put it there and make sure that all the elements have been purified. See, so but just by doing that act, it's not just those little things in the little kosha there. You just said that word, navapancha koshaha, right? So it's not just those little things in the kosha that are purified, it's everything in the room and outdoors that just got purified by doing that ritual. And then, hum. I have to take time with the Dana Mudra because it's difficult. Vam. And Om, Aim. See, you make it all pure. And this is all part of purifying outer elements before you finally do a pranayama. And then you do your nyasas, the purifications of your body. So you want everything pure before you worship the Guru. Then you worship Ganesha. Then you worship Lakshmi. Then you worship Saraswati. And Durga is waiting patiently. Yeah, give them all worship. They're all my attendees, you see. And then you get to Mother Durga and you've got 10 gifts for her. See? She's waiting for her brand new sari. See? This will enhance your beauty. So, do I digress? I don't know. But in basic, I'm saying that all of these things, this is a tantric view of what I'm saying. See, it's why I'm going to Buddhism next, and after that, I will go to Krishna's view of it. So basically, then, if you take the tantric view that's coming up, you say, all these very things that I say I'm not, they have a use. I'm going to deify them, because I still have to live with them. So I know I'm not them, but now I know that Brahman, they're shining. They come out of the mind, and they shine as reflections of Brahman. Brahman's their consciousness at different states of vibration, that's all. So no need to negate them with any kind of negativity. No need to affirm them with any kind of hope. You just use them, you see, as elements that have been provided to you by Divine Mother. So now you're a Tantric Vedantist, or a Vedic Tantricist, see. Maybe you can add that into I am all this, see. Because the neti has to turn into iti. All right, so with a song there, you hear a little bit. Song is, of course, a funny word, but it's a stotram called Nirvana Shatkam. And I mean to put it on YouTube soon as a recording, so all of you can see it and hear it with full instrumentation. So let's look at something else that when one finds out about Naham, then one will probably need to face off with some things. That's kind of where I'm going with Kaham. You see, if I ask who I am, then I just said to everyone, right? You can't just say the word who am I, who, you sound like an owl. Because they did that back in the 80s and 90s when Ramana Maharshi was becoming known. I got a little bit tired of hearing who am I all the time, and then not seeing anything happen because of it. And so the contention here is, who am I, who am I? You've already said Naham, I'm none of that. Then all of a sudden you go back and take I'm all that again into I am this, you see. Saham, I am all this. How do you take it back? You just gave it up back there. So you can't take it back as matter because it's not the self. You can't take it back as thought because it's not the self. You cannot take it back as energy because it's not the self. So matter, energy, and thought are not the self. That's one of the most valuable modern Tripujis that we've put together. Svetasvatara Upanishad says that. And modern means this is how it's being interpreted now. So if you've given it up, you can't take it back. You wouldn't want to lick up the spittle you spat out on the sidewalk 2 minutes ago, Sri Ramakrishna said. It's gone forever as any kind of essence that was in it, or any kind of substance that was in it, abiding substance. The only abiding substance is Vyat Swarupakam, is that essence that we just chanted. After I got rid of Mano, Nabudhi, Sharinam, Indridam, Tanmatram, Bhutani, Buddha, after all of that was gone, with the three bodies and all, then I went and said, well then who am I? So where we are right now with this is that who am I has stages. That's all I'm saying. It's not just you can say who am I and say, got it, I'm the Atman, and walk away from the whole thing. That's not working. I haven't seen it work yet. And I've been teaching 40, 50 years, sharing this Dharma with people from both Vedantic, Buddhist, Samkhya, and Tantra perspectives, to say the least, and the followers of these pathways, these darshanas, and watching them, not only here but in India. So my contention, if it must be that, is that who am I has stages. So you're going to have to face off with a few things. So I hope in the next time that we have left, I'll be able to show you this quickly, and then show you Sri Krishna's prepare for battle chart. Because Arjuna's out there, dropped his bow and arrow, right? That's not a good thing for the lovers of Dharma. Have you ever thought of it that way? Oh no, Arjuna, don't do that to us. might not be as brave as you are. We might even be cowards, but if we are, we need your protection. So don't you drop your bow and arrow. And listen to Krishna and then pass it on. So we'll understand it here in darker ages to come. Kali Yuga, for instance. And these great souls are back in the Treta and Dwapara Yugas, and they came, Sattva Yuga started it all off, but here we are in the age of darkness. Thank God Sri Ramakrishna came and brought the Divine Mother of the universe. If Brahman could be thanked, we'd all go running there and thank him. If he had ears, we'd sing his praises. So let's look at this chart, which is a quick study. And sorry for the image; it's rather stark, but I got it. It's a statue in the museum in Calcutta, and I said, well, that's got to have some use later. I took this probably 20 years ago, and this could be something very good around the ascetic way of paths. I was thinking at the time maybe Buddha himself found the asceticism was not going to be the best path, particularly for this age. So then I had some sort of real stark neti-neti teaching, but actually it is kind of neti-neti in its scope here, and it has beautiful quotes though that show you who Lord Buddha was. He says, even as a strong current of a river sweeps away reeds on its banks, so too does Mara, death, destroy all those with worldly cravings again and again. Now, it's like Krishna is saying, and we'll get to that soon, of those who come to know of me, 1,000, only one comes to know me. Those who hear about me, only one comes to know me. Of 1,000 of those who come to know me, only one knows me in truth. So here you have Buddha, much later in India's history, saying this again, that Mara, death, destroys those whose worldly cravings are not dissolved, again and again. So you're going to want to dissolve where the worldly craving comes from, you see. It's basically mind, but look at how it manifests worldly craving through all this, all the way down to senses and matter. What are people really after? They want the world. They don't want God. You have to be real clear about that if you're going to share the Dharma with people. They don't want God. They want the world. So we're going to have to give them wisdom about God. So maybe they'll let loose of their hold of the world and turn towards something greater and better. See? So lead them in that way. It's like Vivekananda coming here, seeing us, saying, wow, how industrious are these people? They're like Prakriti Layas. They've like mastered nature, or they're getting around to it. I better write back to the brother monks who I've invited to come here to share the Vedanta. I'll write back to them. So he writes back and said, when you come here, you'll be amazed. You're all still frogs in the well. You should come see what the Americans are doing, and the English. Of course, they'd seen some of the things the English did, but let's not go there right now. But come see what the Americans are up to, and the American women. How amazed he was at first to see free women, relatively free will women. This was even before women's emancipation, so you can imagine how bad the condition of women in India had been if he saw American women before emancipation, so-called, came to them. And he was thinking, wow, look at that. That's wonderful, you see. So there are degrees of this kind of Maya that's covering everything in human minds. So he wrote back and he told them, yes, they're amazing in their mastery over nature, but they're just infants in spirituality. They don't know a thing about spirituality. He was looking at the religion that was here, a fundamentalist Christianity, an outdated Judaism. I mean, he was looking at these and he's going, oh my, is this what you believe? Is this what my people have come to? And we talk about Moses talking about my people. That's a Jewish race. You talk about Vivekananda, talk about my people. He's talking about 7 worlds of his people. All the lokas are under his control. He's the highest rishi. I sang that song last night at the puja. Sri Ramakrishna Ekadin. So if he says this has happened to my people, he's saying the people of the world. He's a world leader, not just a religious leader. So go on with this. Those deluded souls jump from life to life like a monkey from tree to tree. And you can go to India and see that. Monkeys jumping from trees to trees, I mean. But whosoever overcomes the billows of relative existence will see these sorrows duly lifted, falling away like drops of water from a lotus leaf. So whosoever overcomes the billows of relative existence. So here's the billows. In Vedanta they're called these 6 transformations. And in Buddhism he calls them 6 billows. Sometimes they get the name Sadurmi. So basically, you can see on the Buddhist side of the chart there, I put them together side by side because they differ a little bit from age to age. But let's go with Vedanta first because we're more familiar with that. Birth, growth, disease, old age, decay, and death. 6 transformations. How about once you realize that you're none of this, and then you see what's behind it? Time, space, name, form, causality. That's what's not said here, right? So you're getting a biological reading of Samkhya here in Shankara's hands, but you haven't yet seen the philosophy of India that it's based upon. These are the things that are the rub on existence, relative existence. Otherwise it would be fine, wouldn't it? Oh, gee, I don't have any disease. I'm not going to die. But you can only say that from the absolute standpoint because I could sing it out of the same stotra, Nam Richor Nashanka, Name Jati Beda. I'm not going to die. Why? Because I never had a birth. So talk about jumping the gun. Talk about preconception. Talk about getting an upper hand over everything in relativity. I was never born. I could sing you other verses the Advaita sings about that if there's time. In Buddhism's look, it's hunger, thirst, grief, delusion, old age, and death. So you can see old age and death are the same. But in Buddhism, there's these billows they talk about because they're always rising. The body's never satisfied its hunger. It can never satisfy its thirst. And grief might as well be the 6 passions. See? Lust, anger, greed, envy, delusion, and jealousy. Greece might as well be the moniker, the word for all 6 of them, the 6 passions. And might as well, but actually it's one of the 8 fetters in Vedanta. So it's like a cover-all for 14 things, really, when he says it there. So that's it. That's the chart, except for the fact that he's sat under the bo tree for so long. And this image here that I put on either side is when he came out of his enlightenment, he was sending love and blessings to all beings in the world. And what did he say was happening? They shot arrows back at him. This was actually a physical incident in his life where people tried to shoot him with arrows, army. See, you go through the divine Leela of Buddha. Now it's all in pictures it's beautiful on the web. They've taken, all these scenes of Buddha's life that most of us have never heard even half of, and put them all in pictures. Beautiful, what he did. Like going before the Red Indians, and so forth, in different parts of the country of India and up north. So basically, they just shot arrows back with him. He threw flowers. He continued to throw flowers. So that's his nonviolent stance. One thing, and it goes deeper than that, is compassion. This is why Swami Vivekananda said, one of the greatest beings that ever visited Earth, if not the greatest, Lord Buddha. He had a huge love for him. Final quote, and then we can, I'm presenting this from the standpoint of Kaham, right? When you say, I'm not, who am I? Then you're going to have to look deeper than just a few biological principles and some problems in your mind. You're going to have to look at the philosophy now. And this is the next stage that I'm talking about that people don't go to. I say, well, I think I understand you. I'm going to pretend I'm not the self, I'm not the non-self anymore, but I'm going to act like I am the non-self. It doesn't wash, you see. It doesn't wash. My Oregonian accent or my English coming out of me, but my friends used to say, you always say wash. So I've made an attempt to say wash in that sentence. So basically, here he is saying, Lord Buddha again, renounce all thirst and cravings, master philosophy and terminology, and take your place among the foremost of the sages. Bear this body for the last time. Is there any mistaking this message? No mistaking Buddha, right? Think, I am the conqueror of all. I am the knower of all. I have relinquished all the power. I have relinquished all by the power of the self. I am liberated. No mistaking a message like that. The only thing I can think of when I hear that, I thought about it, how inspiring it was this. What to say? This beautiful song written in this day and time by Swami Sarvagananda of the Ramakrishna Order says, Victory to Vivekananda. Hail unto thee, an incarnation of Shiva, who destroys all negativities. The devotees sing your praises with jubilant voices. O Vivekananda, O Videshwara, that's the name for Shiva. O Shiva of Varanasi, that's the Shiva. The many atmospheres, gross and subtle, resound with the power of thy name. So victory to Vivekananda. Jai Ho, Vivekananda. That's all that came to me when I said, do I have any music that would go with that? Buddha's saying. So the two might as well have been one. You see, they said that maybe Vivekananda is an incarnation of Buddha. Then they look and say, well, he's also an incarnation of Shiva. You know, boy, what have we got here in this age when you talk about Swami Vivekananda? It's amazing. Very inspiring. So that's all, basically. The 6 transformations. I'm looking at them as I said, in terms of Kaham, is that you're not that. You know, when you say, who am I? You're Naham, all of this. But you also have to look at these more how to say it, you know, these more philosophical tattvas, because these are physical tattvas, psychological tattvas, right? Now you've got philosophical tattvas that go in with this answer you must glean, when you first answer the question, who am I, after you've gotten rid of all of it. Gotten rid of it means you know for certain that you're nothing changing. It's probably as succinct and concentrated as they could say.
We've lost sound.
How long ago?
Sometime during the music, which sounded sublime over his.
Okay. Well, should I turn this off and on, or is it the computer?
Yeah, try that. I don't know if it's...
Okay, I'm back on now. Test, test. 1, 2, 3, test. Tap, tap. I don't know if the...
I'm asking everybody now if sound is back. I'm
If
hearing from Mark David that it's...
Hello, testing. 1, 2, 3. Saptami. Durga Navaratri period. Maybe the great inspiration of the song blew out the microphone. Couldn't take it.
Sounded great over the headphones, which means the camera files will be good.
Oh yeah, so that's great. We have it copied. Well, another thing we have to say about Mother Durga is her name, at least one meaning for her name is hard. Durga means hard, difficult. So she's hard to know, no doubt about that, but what aspect of the mother isn't, in a sense. But there's also, she takes very difficult things and makes them possible. That's where this idea of taking two black stones, smashing them together, and what was left is consciousness. She does that. People can't take these contrastic opposites, philosophically speaking, and somehow make that fit in their mind. It's beyond them. But she can do that. And that's part of revelation in an age. Like opening up the chakras for a certain rishi. It's beautiful. Mahachamashma opens up the heart chakra at one age. People all of a sudden, oh, gee, what's that? The only thing out here you have equivalent to that is breaking the sound barrier. People go, wow, what's that?
Okay, Babaji, I think you should just continue the class, and at least we'll have it
on the
with,
camera.
Camera files.
All right, that's too bad.
Yeah.
So none of them are hearing it yet?
Germany is getting it, and everybody in the U.S. is having problems.
Oh my gosh. Well, what did Anurag say, that all of West Portland is out, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if
but
it's...
he's been up here, and he...
All right, so then let's move on.
And it's very low volume. That's Kanya.
She's all, yeah, that happens with her.
Always a problem.
All right, well, we can move on to the class and get it on the camera. People can look back later, right?
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Okay then. We just got a little break, a little breather. Shall I go on then, Anupam?
Yes.
All right.
Continue.
All right, so the point is made, right? So philosophical tattvas are also a part of the question, who am I? To bring it down to just, I think it's a very nice layered way of thinking of it. Because I don't think people, when they ask, who am I, they might be thinking just about, oh, he wants me to get rid of the ego. Or the seers want me to get rid of the ego, so that the aspirant knows what a rascal the ego is. And it was part of what the fourfold mind was about when we tried to get rid of it. So they're saying, oh, he's talking about my ego, I have to ripen that. Or I have to somehow diminish its influence on me. Or maybe get rid of it altogether, but Sri Ramakrishna said that's not possible as long as you have a barda. You cannot get rid of the ego. That's what happens in deep sleep, and you're not in deep sleep. You don't have to ask there, what am I not? Because it's already happened to you. You're nothing there. And you become something again until you start dreaming, and then waking. So all of this is the dynamics of the ego. So most people then are probably thinking about that, but when you go deeper with the question of who am I, they're probably not yet covering all the physical tattvas because they still have to use them. So there's a danger of them not being renounced fully. And also then the mental body, the sukshma sharira, probably they have to use that too, even more so now. And they might have some scars and karmas still in that. See, so when you ask who am I, maybe the intellect is still not as clear as it should be. It's still being influenced by the ego, and the mind is still attached to dualities, and the thoughts are not that high all the time because of the gunas. So you see what I'm saying here, I hope. Yeah. So then you get up to at the deep sleep. You might as well be talking about such things as time, space, name, form, and causation. All right, so I don't want to kick a dead philosophical horse here, but points need to be made. So then let's look at Sri Krishna's take. And if I put it here on this chart. Prepare yourself for battle. What are the signs of battle when you ask, who am I? Well, there's the backdrop of the two armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And there's Arjuna on his knees before Krishna, wanting to get some information. They've both stepped out of the chariot, which Krishna is driving for him, so that Krishna is not actually a participant in the war as far as any kind of action except being an observer and driving Arjuna's chariot. Krishna is his beloved friend at this time. He doesn't know that he's the Lord of all the worlds, Maheshvara, Sarva Loka Maheshvara. Doesn't know that yet, but he does know. He's beginning to find out now, discourse by discourse. 18, as it were, discourses on the Gita. Krishna is, by the time he starts the first one, Arjuna is depressed. Later on, he's asking questions. Later on, he says, my eyes have been opened. And at the end, he's like, I love you, Lord. You're my all in all. And I will do exactly what you say now. I'll never return to that Naham stage again. And even the Kaham, I won't have to ask who I am anymore. I know now who I am, thanks to your grace. So let's see here what we've got. Arjuna on his knees asking questions. So the feet down there have been assigned transcendence of war in this particular render. Above him, Krishna is giving him instructions in making ready for battle. Those two assignments I put there, above and below, like Krishna's feet there, and then, getting ready to realize what the Lord is telling you by entering into this battle. And I've put two across from each other, like on the two armies, indications of forthcoming success on this side. You probably can't read it very well until you get footfalls and look at it, or watch this class later on the SRV site and so forth. On the other side, indications of failure, pending failure, it says. So let's take Krishna's quote at the top. What is sweet in the beginning is to be avoided, for it generally turns sour in the end. But what is sour at the end is to be forborne and purified, for it gradually transforms into sweetness of true attainment. So here's the Mayic problem coming at us. What we want to go after, particularly if we still believe Naham, that we're all that, is nature, articles, lands, money, desires. And those things are not going to be very good for you later. If you fulfill them in the Dharma, it's different, but most people aren't doing that, not in the Kali Yuga. So it's going to happen that they get some sour fruits. Like a guru's going to come and say, you have to practice meditation. Oh, man. See? And then so they do that till their knees ache, their back aches, and there's all sorts of, my mind rebels on me. Keep it up, keep it up. Oh, God, do I have to? So this is sour fruit that turns sweet later, because pretty soon you've got mastery of your body under all conditions. You're not dependent on food. You're not dependent on, you're not plagued by the mind that's depressed or restless. And you've attained that mastery. Isn't it beautiful in that quote by him? He said, master philosophy and terminology. Again, that just really does not sound like Lord Buddha the way most people picture him or envision him. He doesn't use words. He said, master philosophy, there's a lot of words there. What are the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and all that, if not words? And also become a master of terminology and philosophy. Well, philosophy, I don't need that. I just need to meditate or love God. I'll pick one of those two paths. I don't need philosophy. Well, Lord Buddha said you did, and he's the best meditator of all. So maybe you ought to rethink this and get your mind clean with some knowledge, some jnanam in there, and get rid of your ignorance, and then try and meditate and see how fast enlightenment comes. So at the top here and the bottom, I put these bubbles because I feel that teachers of the middle path, the greatest teachers of the middle path, were Krishna, ironically enough, Buddha, and Sri Sharda Devi in this age. Then I put Sri Sharda's quotes up here that are very beautiful. The top one, she says, God, if not realized in the world, he is realized, God is not realized in the world. He is realized in spirit. Has God ever visited anyone who is devoid of ecstatic fervor? Talk about a pointed statement from somebody who is a witness of consciousness and who does meditate and use the words of the mantra better than anyone we've ever known in history of our world. So that's very powerful. And remember what I said, my teacher said, Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj, you cannot get to the infinite through the finite. Well, that's his interpretation of what she told him when she said this. He's not realized in the world. He's realized in spirit. So you can't take the world and say, I think I'm going to try and realize Krishna here, or Brahman, because they're not here. It's certainly not here until you do Naham, ask the question Kaham, and come to the conclusion, Saham, I am that. I am she. Soham is the way the Tantrists put that. It's a one-word mantra for them. Soham, I am she. So others might say, I am he, but the Divine Mother worshippers want, like that word Soham. I, Aham, gets turned to Soham, or Saham, with I, without I, or Naham, without the small I. And Kaham, then you could see the beauty of the whole play on these two-syllable words, which might as well just be bijams. So beautiful. She goes on to say, has anyone ever visited, has God ever visited anyone who is devoid of ecstatic fervor? My goodness, there's so many people claiming God realization. Do we see them go into ecstatic moods? Show me them. Show me them on the web. Show me them on the YouTube. They may be dancing, or they may be pretending, whatever the case. When you saw Sri Ramakrishna, there's no mistaking his ecstasy. There's no mistaking liberation. There's no mistaking his ecstasy. So he danced with a combination of a lion and an incense plume. That's how he danced, completely taken over by Mother. So she saw this, her and her divine husband, and she's making a very powerful point there. Basically, has God ever come to anyone who hasn't had ecstatic fervor? If God comes, it means if God comes, the world goes away. And Sri Ramakrishna used to say that through his own experience. Across the board, as we take these exciting and very inspiring quotes of hers, ordinary people are quite happy. They eat, drink, make merry, and forget God. Only the devotees know no end to real suffering, and that is because they do not see him. So they see the world and they're happy, but the devotees see the world and they go, where is he? Where is she? And this doesn't allow them any rest, any peace. So they can have their happiness, you see, but it's all this very minimal surface happiness. We already know what happens to that. Arjuna is an example of that, because he's not realized yet. He's dharmic, true blue dharmic, but in the dharma of everyday life of the world in that period of time, his brother Yudhishthira, that's another level of dharma. He's very, very realized, and so Krishna doesn't need to go and talk to him, you see. But Arjuna is coming up through that, and he's in this plight. He's in. So, and she used to say that then, and basically, suffering, it's only the devotees who suffer. The worldly don't suffer except the suffering that's the opposite of pleasure. Pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain, pleasure, pain. The devotees are kind of beyond that. They're getting bliss, loneliness, bliss, loneliness, bliss, loneliness. You see, where is he? Where is she? And then when he comes or she comes to him, they get this bliss. They get this sattva. Are there people having sattva? We might as well add that in. Has sattva ever come to anyone? So that's what they're getting. But we see that, this basic overall, this very base suffering, that's not what's causing the devotees to weep and to yearn, as Sri Ramakrishna said. It's because, where are you? Where are you? I know you're there. I feel you. Come forth. All right, so two beautiful quotes to start us off, and we probably should look at down the chart. There are indications of pending failure. So, here's the army that's, where it's going to lose, and here's the army that's going to win. These armies are in you. So, here's signs. Imagining that the world can grant all that one desires. That's a sign of pending failure. Attachment to work, considering it everything in life. That's a sign of pending failure. Thinking wealth and enjoyment of the sense objects to be the purpose of human existence. Failure. Getting elated by praise and honor and deflated by blame and criticism. Well, go back up to his sour, sweet analogy and you'll see where he's coming from. And listening to conventional opinions only while turning away from wise counsel. Swami Vivekananda said they'll listen to the words of a fool. Who's speaking lies, but they won't listen to a few words of a wise soul, even though his words ring of the highest truth. I'm paraphrasing. So that's what he saw about us in the West. We're just going to all these fools, listening to this nonsense. Even nonsense on the relative plane, like, you were a monkey once. Oh, okay. Or you were somehow some little paramecium somewhere. You know how you were those things? As a witness, you were those things. Not as the thing itself. You come out of the Mahat. You come out of the great mind. They come out of nature. Bodies come out of nature. You're never a body. We tried with Naham to get that one past this. Now we're at Kaham. Let's get with me. Follow the dance here. It's like dancing with a kangaroo. See? Try and get these old notions out of your skull. And then let's look at. So there's just some fun I had with this image. It's very, of course, you have to look at it close up and study it. But basically, when I thought about the predicament of Arjuna, the presence of the Lord there, that he's now really listening to with perfect attention, because the war that's around him doesn't just mean, he's got to go out. He could go out there and kill anyone. Nobody can get, and you don't want to get close to Arjuna. You don't want to get 200 feet from Arjuna, even with armor on, because from a moving chariot, he can put an arrow through that chink in your armor, and that's it. He doesn't even have to get near you. He's like a master. But now look what happened to him. See, so what is it that's gotten into him that's made him this way? He's got ancestors on the other side of the battlefield, for one thing. Talk about a teaching from the Buddha. How your ancestors will pull you down, and how you believe they're real, and how you're going to be reborn to them, and then they're going to be reborn to you, how you're going to change places with them again and again and again. Aren't you tired of all that? Do you want to be free and then help free them from the same predicament? You're talking about, again, two exact same beings. I was singing a hymn earlier today whose words said, Krishna Buddha, right, it's called the Dasa Avatar Stotram. So you're singing the 7th or 8th verse of that. It's talking about Buddha as one of the Dasa Avatars. Krishna's in the same verse. So, you see that, these are the same being. The avatars are all cut from the same cloth. Just because they have different bodies, are they their bodies? Just because they have, different ways of thinking, are they their minds? Just because they lived in different places of India, are they space? Just because they came at different times, are they time? Or is that all Naham to them? You see, take that back. I don't even have to ask anymore, who am I? So I'm taking this class a few more minutes so we can finish this indications of forthcoming success. The other side of the battlefield, if you will. Feeling a general dissatisfaction with the world. And you tell that to most people, say, I don't like that. That's not a good teaching. I almost like the other side of the army better. I'm joining them. I'm quitting. But that's the sweet, the sour in the beginning, sweet later. Performing disinterested works for a higher end. Try and convince businessmen in the West of that. It's a no-go. Swamis have told me that. That they can't see why they should do anything for free. And when they do something for free, it's so that they can get something from it, out of it, like fame, or be noticed, or their ego gets a stroke. So the selflessness we were talking about, that as opposed to the selfishness is a sign of spirituality or not, or more spirituality and less, depending on what degree of selfishness is in the mind, or in the other case, how selfless you are. Third thing here is considering the increase of knowledge and spiritual growth to be the point of life in the world. We saw across the board what they thought was the point of life in the world, but this is the increase of knowledge and spiritual growth that you get on that track. I'm feeling better every day. See, sattva is with me more often, isn't it? You go on retreat, and you're near holy company and so forth. You stay with it long enough. Yep. Never going back. Treating the contrasting duality of praise and blame equally. Equanimity is there. And taking seriously the words of illumined beings and following them. So you're not listening to fools and following them. And anyone speaks your highest degree to say, please leave. It's like the ego comes to a party, and you ask it, when are you going home? It says, I'll think about it. So if you get these people around you, they're giving you all this false chatter, and you're befriending them. But somebody comes and says, the cops are coming. They're going to bust your party. I don't believe you. So they give you this good advice that's going to save you all sorts of trouble, and you're not listening to them. Putting that in crass worldly terms. So I'd love to read more of Holy Mother's quotes here, but let's take a few more minutes to read these three, because then now you will have the signs of battle, and you'll have signs of pending failure that are cautions, and you'll have indications of coming success. It's very well put up, and although it's a bit complicated as an image and as text, study it deeply, get up close to it. So Vivekananda says here, and one of my favorite all-time quotes of his, one of them, because it's hard to pick more than 10 or 20 even, he says, there are two tendencies of human nature. One is to harmonize the ideal with life, and the other to elevate life to the ideal. It is a great thing to understand this, for the former tendency is the temptation of our lives. Understand that? You have to look at it and think about it, but you're trying to, in another way he once said, you're trying to drag Brahman down to the world. See? That's the tendency of our life. Oh, God has blessed me. He favors one army over the other. Oh, God is going to give me this, or God didn't give me this. So you're trying to drag Brahman down where it doesn't go. But if you take everything in your life and raise it up to Brahman, like make an offering to it, that's a fine thing to understand, he says. So let's read these final two quotes of Holy Mother, and we'll close. Whatever I could fit in about Kaham, I think the main points were made. Next week, next Sunday, we'll go on to Saham, I am that. She says here, the suffering of worldly beings pains me. But what can I do? They will not seek liberation. For sincere seekers, however, misery is the gift of God. It is a symbol of His compassion. Wow. I don't think there's any unclarity in that either. Some woman went to Padre Pio once and said, will you take away my suffering? Because he's having stigmata, right? Oh, you must be Christ. He must be in there. You can take away my suffering. And he told her, if you knew how beneficial your suffering is to you, you would not ask me to take it away. So, talk about the sweet and the sour. Sure, she didn't want to hear that. Who would, who is suffering? Or what kind of suffering is it you're suffering? Is the suffering your fault or coming from another quarter? I mean, there's all sorts of things to delve into that you can do for yourself here. But to go and ask an illumined soul to do that, he's looking at your karma and saying, you've got to do this to get there. Is there going to be divine intervention there? I think probably pretty rarely. And finally she says, when a favorable time dawns, man gets the desire to contemplate God. When unfavorable times come, he acquires the facilities of doing evil. Thus, one should constantly make oneself fit for the grace of God. Sri Sharda Devi, Hey Mahamate, our great mother, says this. So instead of a chant, I will end with a piece of a chant that I wanted to chant last night at the puja, but there was not time for. Parumaya Vande, Mera Prana Tumi, Mera Jan Tumi, Ase Jan Parame, Dina Tere Nante. You are my life force, O Mother. You, my meditation. You are my supreme enjoyment. Your name, O Durga, is my only refuge. You are Shiva's vessel, the living force of compassion, a boundless mass of blissful radiance, ever adored by all the gods. You are the Mother of the Lord, the holder of all worlds, residing in them all as an invisible play of shadows, subjecting everyone to your playful sport. You are the mind's imaginings, and you absorb a mass of thoughts into you. O humble one, of proud names innumerable, the sages go on speaking about you throughout time. In the illumined mind you appear as light, in the devout mind as the world mother. O all-attracting Shakti, slender-waisted, supple, bestow wisdom and good thoughts. O Ambika, mother of the Gurus, Sri Durga, mother of the worlds, Aisyaluti. O eternal consort of Sri Ram, who art brimming full of loving compassion, we salute thee again, again, and again. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat.